advance the slides.
Yeah.
Hello, and thank you everyone for waiting. My name is Janine Humber. I'm with AARP Massachusetts, and we are lucky enough to be on with the town of Concord, and they have a little trivia for you today. And I would like to introduce Mary Bierman and Stephanie Coulter, and they will take it from here. Thank you.
So, hi everyone, welcome. We're happy to have you join us for our little town trivia that we call, next slide. So you think you know Concord.
Wait, why is it not going?
So I know that not everyone on the webinar is from Massachusetts. I think there's probably a pretty good diverse group. So I want to just tell you a little bit about Concord. So Concord, Massachusetts is a small town. We're about 18 miles west of Boston. But for a small town, we have a pretty rich history. So you might know Concord as the shot heard around the world, the start of the American Revolution. We also had somewhat of a literary revolution here in the mid-1800s with Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Louisa May Alcott, Nathaniel Hawthorne, etc., living here. So we're going to try to touch on all those things. The format that we're going to do today is we are going to take you on our daily town tour in a trivia format. So we're going to hit all the sites that we would hit on our tour. We'll ask you a question, put up some answers. You can take a guess at what you think it is. We'll reveal the correct answer, and then we'll tell you a little bit about some fun facts about those answers. I know we all have access to Google, but let's try to
do this on your own.
do it on your own.
Use your own brain and your own memory. So, and this is an exciting year for us because it's actually the 250th anniversary of that shot heard around the world. So that's been a big deal here. The anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence doesn't come until next year. So, but for us, this is the 250th. So it's a big year for us.
Yeah. So we'll get started. Some of the questions you might find a little difficult. Some of you have been taking some of the other AARP webinars on Concord, so you guys may be the star participants, but either way, sit back, relax, enjoy the tour, and hopefully you'll learn a little something.
All right, ready?
We're ready.
Okay.
Okay, so indigenous people have lived on the land that we know now as Concord for over 12,000 years. What name did they call this land?
So here are your options.
A, Manamet, B, Neshoba, or C, Musketaquid.
So I'm going to give you a few seconds to think about that.
And I think Janine has it set up where you can.
You might be able to put it in a little poll. I'm hoping she does. Do you have that, Janine?
Yes. Oh, yes, I do have that. I didn't know if I was on mute or not. Oh, look at those answers coming up already.
Oh, excellent. I'd love to.
Oh, so you can see them. We can. So you can tell us. All right.
You guys should be able to see them too.
Okay. How many people do we have online today?
46 and counting.
All right.
Nice. Okay. Has everybody had a chance to answer, do you think?
Just about half. They're still answering. Yeah, they're going down the line.
Hopefully they're not Googling.
No.
None of that, people. Plus, there's no real big prize at the end. It's just your own feeling good about yourself. All right, we ready to give the answer?
Ready, yeah.
Let's do it.
The answer is Musketaquid. So the native people who settled here in this area about at least 12,000 years ago. They were the ancestors of the Wampanoag and the Nipmuc people. And as we just said, they called this area Musketaquid, which roughly translated from the Algonquin language means tall grasses by the river.
And we certainly have those if you come to our rivers here, so you'll see that. All right. The following slide shows a picture of something the indigenous people used in Musketaquid. What is it? Take a look at this. Oh, I see. So
I see the picture.
Can you see the picture?
There we go.
All right, so I'm going to show you the answers. It's A, a bridge, B, a fishing weir, or C, a weetu. I wonder if I can go
It
back.
appears that 80% has chosen a certain topic, a certain answer.
It's a fishing weir.
They were right.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. Maybe Can we maybe go back and just
Let
even
me see if I can
explain
go
how that
back.
fishing weir
Oh,
works?
wait, no, I
maybe
don't
not.
think I
Okay.
can. I don't know how to go back. It won't let me go back. So let me just ignore this question for a second. A fishing weir is it was a wooden dam with obviously big holes in it, big spaces so that the water could go through and the fish would get caught. And that way you could just spear the fish. It's a more efficient way of fishing. So it's actually very helpful for the Native Americans.
Oh,
All
wow,
right.
81%. Excellent.
I like bridge. A Wetu, if you don't know what a Wetu is, that's actually the building that they had. It's a sort of a dome-shaped bark and tree made dwelling. So kind of looks like a dome. So that's what a Wetu is. Okay, so here's our next question.
Okay, name the two men who brought settlers out to Concord in 1635. A. Edwards and Fuller. B. Bulkley and Willard. C. Wheeler and Miriam. This is a tough one.
It is a tough one. Let me just go see if I can go backwards. Oh, look, I can go backwards.
Okay. Oh.
Now I know how to go backwards, you guys. I know you're very excited about that. I'm very excited. All right, how are we doing for answers? Do we have enough people in, do you think? Janine, I cannot hear you if you're answering me.
I apologize. I said it actually was stuck on question 3, so I'm not sure why that happened.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. All right. So we're going to give you that answer, kids. I hope you've all had a chance to think about this.
Okay, the answer is Simon Willard and Peter Bulkley. So Simon Willard was a trader who came out here. He was an ex-army officer from England. He came out here shortly after the Mass Bay colony was settled in 1620. He started trading out here with the indigenous people. He learned the lay of the land. He learned the Algonquin language. And it was he who decided this would be a great place to expand the Massachusetts Bay colony. So he petitioned the court in 1635 to expand the colony out here. Now, it's interesting to note at that time, all of the other communities in Massachusetts were along the coast. So this, remember I said we're about 18 miles inland. So this was really the wilderness. Imagine coming out here in 1635, into the wilderness, unsettled territory. So Simon Willard came out here, 31 years old. When he petitioned the court, there was also a royal decree at that time that any new community had to have a religious leader come out with them. So they chose a man named Peter Bulkley to come out with Simon Willard. Peter Bulkley was a Puritan minister who had escaped, who had left England to escape religious persecution. So he was fit the role as that religious leader. He was also in his 50s, so a little bit older than the 31-year-old Simon Willard, so kind of balanced his maturity, balanced that. And most importantly, he had some money, which was important to start a new community. So Simon Willard, Peter Bulkley came out here with 12 families in 1635 and settled what the area, which was called Musketaquid, and they renamed it to Concord.
By the way, it was the first inland settlement in Massachusetts. Oh, okay, here we go. What historic structure is this located in the center of Concord? So I'm showing you this building. Take a look. I don't think I've understood that aspect. Okay, is it A, Wright Tavern, B, Middlesex Hotel, or C, Colonial Inn?
I know, I feel like we need that Jeopardy music.
I know, me too.
We could sing it.
All right, how are we feeling? Pretty good? All right, I'm gonna move it along here.
Is everyone on the same question as us, Janine? We're
I know, I really hope they are.
Yes, I keep
Okay,
muting
there.
myself. I apologize.
That's okay.
That's okay.
We can't see the tallies, so we just want to
Okay,
make sure
all right.
everybody's doing the same thing.
So we're going. It's the right
Okay,
tavern.
thank you.
Look at that, it's the Wright Tavern, and I'm going to go back and take another look at it. So this is actually the oldest building that we have currently on Main Street. It was built in 1747. It was indeed a tavern. It was right next to the church. You had your taverns next to your church because It was the place not just to drink, it's a place where you met your neighbors and you got your food. It's where travelers would stay if they were coming through town. And on Sundays, when you had those 8-hour sermons and you stopped for lunch, this is where you would go to eat. Interestingly, probably in that front room on the right-hand side of your screen, that is where the Provincial Congress met in 1773, 74, 75, was they were thinking about how to counteract the military rule in Boston at that time, in the Mass Bay colony, after the Boston Tea Party. So John Hancock, Sam Adams, they came out here and met. And on the morning of April 19th, 1775, that's also where the British soldiers hung out. So it's a pretty historic building. If you get a chance to come here and you walk through, it's been restored and you get to see the original timbers, the original rooms, and it's pretty incredible. Okay.
Excellent. Okay, so our next question. Who gave the orders on April 19th, 1775 at Northbridge to fire for God's sake, fellow soldiers, fire?
All right, here's your choices.
A, Captain Isaac Davis, B, Colonel James Barrett, C, Major John Buttrick.
I have a
you-
quick question. Which
Yeah.
number are we on right now?
Do you know which number?
We are on number 5.
All right, thank you.
How are we doing for time, Janine?
Good, we're doing great for time.
Good. All right, I hope everybody's picked. Here we go. Here's your answer. What do we
let's
got?
see.
I don't know.
Host.
All right, let's see. Let's take that.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's
there we
Major
go.
John Buttrick. Okay, so Major John Buttrick is the one who gave the orders to fire for God's sakes, fire. Now, we just talked about the Provincial Congress having meeting at the, oh, were you guys right? Oh, look at that, 74%, excellent. We talked about the Provincial Congress having meeting at the Wright Tavern. As a result of these meetings, they also started to gather supplies here in Concord. And on the buildup to April 19, 1775, there were enormous amounts of military supplies, enough to outfit an army of 12,000 men. Hidden here in the town, in the homes and the farms around Concord, some a little bit farther west, but the majority in Concord. And it was that reason, those supplies that were hidden here, that General Gage sent those British soldiers out to Concord on April 19, 1775, resulting in that skirmish out at the North Bridge that started the American Revolution.
And that order to fire on your own government's army is what is considered the first official act of the Revolutionary War. There had been a skirmish already in Lexington. Nobody knows who fired first, but this is actually a commander giving the command to his troops to fire on their own government's army, which is an act of treason. All right, what famous author spent the night in the Concord jail in July of 1846? Let's take a look at the answers. A, Louisa May Alcott, B, Ralph Waldo Emerson, or C, Henry David Thoreau? What Concord author spent a night in the Concord jail? How are we looking, kids? People think they know. I will say all of these authors were living in Concord at that time. All right, we're going to move to the answer. Henry David Thoreau. Yes.
Oh,
look at
wow.
you guys.
We've
You're
got
so
a dark
good.
group here.
Henry David Thoreau. Henry at the time had been living out at Walden Pond, where he was not writing the book Walden. He was actually writing 2 weeks on the Assabet and Merrimack. I think that's the name of the book. So he was out there for 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. But he frequently came into town. It's less than a mile out of the center of town. And he was always in and out of Concord Center to, you know, get dinner at his mother's house, do his laundry, all the things that single men do when they live alone. At any rate, he was coming in because he needed to get his shoes resold. And he ran into his friend Sam Staples, who said, gee, Henry, you haven't paid your taxes. Sam happened to be also the jailer, the tax collector. He had a number of roles here in Concord. He said, if you don't pay your taxes, I need to put you in jail. And Henry said, I refuse to pay taxes to a government that supports slavery. This was around the time of considering whether or not to bring Texas into the Union. And if we brought it in as a slave state, he was very opposed to slavery. Let's just say that. So he spends the night in jail. And while he is there, an unnamed woman comes to the jail and pays his fine and pays his taxes. We're not sure who that was. Could have been his aunt who is living nearby. But that one night in jail inspired him to write the essay, Civil Disobedience, the paper Civil Disobedience, which went on to inspire Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela and MLK Jr. So it's the idea that the ordinary man has an obligation to stand up against tyranny anywhere. So that's it was a very significant night in jail. All right.
I think we have a couple photos.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, this is the photo of the replica cabin that is out at Walden Pond. If you guys come to Concord, you can go out and visit. And then we also have a picture of the jail site.
Ooh, look at that. He was in prison for one night in jail. So we have that right here. That's as a
It's a stop on our tour.
It is a stop on our tour. All right.
Okay, this is a fun one. What crime took place in this building in Concord Center?
Well, so you take a look at the building.
Hmm.
Currently a shoe store.
It was not a shoe store when the crime took place. A bank robbery. B, the capture of a fugitive slave. Or C, theft of a cannon used on 4/19/1775.
Does everybody make their choices? Ooh, I like that.
Oh,
Nice. Interesting. This was a tough one, you guys.
bank robbery. Who knew? If you look at the picture of the building, it does kind of look like a bank,
wait.
right?
Yeah, let me see if I can go back. There we go.
Yeah, it kind of has those columns. You can now see the bank kind of look to it. So in 1865, that building was the site of a notorious bank robbery. We had two career criminals, Langdon Moore and Harry Howard, who came into town with the idea of robbing that bank. They knew this is right after the end of the Civil War. This area was, there was flush with money. They knew there was some money in this bank and some securities. And they went in with the idea of robbing the bank, and they were able to rob the bank of $300,000 in cash and securities. Oh, wait, this is $800,000.
No, it says 300.
Oh, that's a
Just-
three. Okay,
That's a
yeah,
three.
okay,
Don't worry.
okay.
But
Yeah,
in
so I'm like,
today's money,
about what?
it's about 4 million.
$4 million. So a
that's-
huge bank robbery, one of the largest bank robberies in the country at that time. And interestingly enough, they did it without brandishing a weapon. So they came in, they opened up a bank account. On one of their trips into the bank, they made a wax impression of the lock. So they were able to make a key. And they noticed that every day the bank teller went home for lunch from 12 to 1. When he went home for lunch, he took the key to the safe, put it up above his teller's window, locked the door of the bank, and went back to lunch. So on the day of the crime, they came in, they used their key, opened up the door, took the key to the safe, went upstairs, emptied out the safe, left, and on their horses off they went. It said, fun little fact, they put the horseshoes on backwards on the horse to throw the authorities out. And they did initially get away with the crime. However, as you can see, this was a big deal. This one made the New York Times. And someone saw that and put two and two together that these two career criminals were in Little Concord, Mass. And there was this big crime, and they were caught. Langdon Moore spent 15 years in prison, but he wrote a book called My Eventful Life. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah, My Eventful Life. And that's how we know all these little facts about the crime, but just sort of a fun fact about our now.
He also, from my understanding, earned more from the sale of his book than he did from his bank robberies.
I
So
don't think you can do that anymore.
crime
can you?
paid in that. No, I don't think you can. I do not think you can. Okay. Whose name was recently added to the Civil War monument in Concord? So we have a Civil War monument. It honors all the men. Well, there were no women who fought, but men who died during the Civil War who came from Concord. That's what it looks like. It's an obelisk similar to the Washington Monument there in our center of town on Monument Square. Was it A, John Melvin, B, George Dugan, or C, Ezra Ripley? This might be a little obscure. So
But it's a good story.
it is a good story.
We like stories on our tours. I always feel like when you take a tour or, you visit somewhere new, you can read about it in the guidebooks and stuff. So on our tours, we like to tell you these fun little stories that kind of bring the place to life.
And that you might not look up otherwise.
Right.
All right. I think everybody at this point might have made a guess. It's George Washington Dugan. George Washington Dugan was a Black Concordian who lived right in the center of town at the Middlesex Hotel. He had lived here for a while, and he actually joined up to fight in the Civil War in the infantry. Was it the
54th, Reg.
54th? Thank you. Once Lincoln allowed Blacks to fight in the Civil War. Prior to that, they had not been allowed to. So his name was not on the Civil War monument initially because he was considered missing in action. He had not been listed as killed. However, he was part of the group that had been surprised in one of the battles and completely decimated. That whole group of 54th Infantry had been killed, and they were buried in a mass grave. So they had to do some sleuthing to find out that this had happened. He was part of that. And so once they determined that he actually had been killed in action, they decided to add him to the monument. He was added
November, just
in
last
November.
November. Yeah.
We had a very nice ceremony. There we go.
Part of the fun of the story is that the impetus to get his name added to the monument was a group of school kids, which I think is really fun. They petitioned the town. They thought it was not right that George's name wasn't up there. It took a long time to get his name up there. There was, small town politics, funding, COVID, all those kinds of things. But when they had the ceremony unveiling his name, those kids who are now
I think
going
they're out
to
of
college,
I know.
came back and spoke at the ceremony. So it was really nice. It's like a great civics.
Absolutely. I think they were in
project that they can see.
elementary school when they
so
did it,
they
but
got to see something happen. So
it was very exciting.
Well, Mary and Stephanie, we have a question. Someone has
sure.
their hand up. Mary Hatterer. I will put her on. Mary, please speak.
But Mary, you've just got to unmute yourself first.
Yeah. Because I unmuted her, but
Mary, you just have to hit your little microphone button so you're not muted. Oh my gosh, I'm so sad. Mary, we can't hear you.
no, I'm not really sure.
well, why don't you hold on to your question and then at the
You
end
can always
we'll
write
back
it in the chat
and
as
see if
well.
anybody else. Yeah, just
Absolutely.
make a little note so you remember, and we'll check it back in with you at the end.
Absolutely. Or put it in the chat.
Oh, that's an idea.
Put it in the chat, Mary. We'll find it. Okay.
Okay, what Concord woman was among those who voted in this building in 1879?
So 1879, here's the building. Take a look.
1879. Did women have the right to vote? All right,
yeah.
our choices: Abigail Adams, B. Mary Moody Emerson, or C. Louisa May Alcott. Do you want to answer this one since you're the Louisa May expert?
All right, kids. It's Louisa May Alcott.
How'd we do?
Yeah, look, I love that.
nice.
So here's what you have to know. 1879 is way before women were allowed to vote. But Massachusetts gave women the right to vote locally, just in local elections, for things like school superintendent, because they felt that women could best understand children and school issues. So Louisa was actually the first woman in the country to register to vote. The day of the voting was 1880. So that was the day of the very first vote. She had convinced about 20 other women to vote with her. She went into that house. Wait, there we go. That's our townhouse. That still is there today, built in the 1800s. She went in there to vote. She came out, she stood on those steps and she said, No bolt fell on our audacious heads. No earthquake shook the town. Imagine that. Women had voted, and the town was still standing. So that was a pretty big deal. Pretty big deal.
Okay, our next question. Among many town founders and revolutionary veterans buried at Old Hill Burying Ground is a formerly enslaved man who died in 1773. What is his name?
So this is a formerly enslaved man, a Revolutionary War veteran, buried on our Old Hill burial ground, which if you come here, looks pretty
Look
awesome.
at that. Isn't that beautiful?
It's our oldest burial ground in Concord, and it's actually where the first settlers lived that first year. They dug homes out of the hillside because it was nice and warm in there, and then they buried all their dead. So
So our choices are A, John Garrison, B, Brister Freeman, or C, John Jack. We'll give you a couple minutes. This is a tough one.
I know it is a tough one. Janine, you can maybe show us when you think the polls have closed, as it were.
Oh, wow. This group
Nice.
is really excellent. Okay, yes, it was John Jack. So John Jack has a really interesting story. So he was born, we believe, around 1713 in Africa, and he was enslaved here in Concord to a man named Benjamin Barron. Now, when Benjamin Barron died in 1754, John Jack went to his widow and asked if he could purchase his freedom from her. So they came to an agreement, probably some ridiculous amount of money. I don't know. I think
It was
$120,000.
$25,000 in today's money.
Crazy. It took him 8 years working as a shoemaker while still enslaved to the widow Barron to gain his freedom. But when he died in 1773, John Jack was a landowner here in town. He was free. He was a landowner. He owned 8 acres of land, an oxen, and a cow. So I think that's a pretty remarkable story, given the fact that I'm thinking 1773, that's before the American Revolution, never mind the Civil War. And here we have a formerly enslaved man living as a landowner here in town. But the story gets even more interesting because when he died, the man who was given the job to execute his will was a lawyer named Daniel Bliss, who was a Tory. So he used that opportunity to write an inscription on John Jack's gravestone, which I'll read you in part because I think it's worthwhile reading. It says, "Here lies the body of John Jack, a native of Africa, who died March 1773, aged about 60 years. Though born in a land of slavery, he was born free. Though he lived in a land of liberty, he lived a slave, till by his honest labors he acquired the source of slavery, which gave him his freedom, though not long before death, the grand tyrant gave him his final emancipation." So pretty powerful words. That text was sent to a London newspaper and became used as propaganda. So against the colonies, like how dare the colonies ask for their freedom from Great Britain when they have enslaved people in their new colonies? So this is actually pretty famous.
Yep,
I'm pretty
it
sure.
is
I think the
actually.
Smithsonian came out and made a.
Oh, I think so,
Yeah,
yes.
they made a copy of it. John Jack, remember that name. When we're finished, you can Google and learn a little bit more about it. I think it's a really, really fascinating story.
There's
And
his,
here's a copy of what his tombstone looks like.
yes. Here's another little tidbit about Benjamin Barron, his enslaver's wife, who was the woman that John Jack petitioned for his freedom. Her name was Elizabeth Barron, but her maiden name had been Parrish. She was Betty Parrish. She lived in Salem and was one of the girls who called out Tituba for being a witch. So that's not little.
She started the whole Salem witch trials.
Exactly.
Got married, moved to Concord, and here.
Tried to forget her past.
Yeah.
Okay. What sports team held their first practices at this armory in Concord? So here's the armory. And what sports team? Now, you kind of have to maybe know Boston sports. So we have A, New England Patriots, B, Boston Celtics, or C, Boston Red Sox. Who do you think was holding their very first practices all the way out here in little old Concord? All right. What do we think? It's the New England Patriots.
Well, the name fits, the Patriots,
It kind
right?
of
Coming out
does.
here,
The
yeah,
Patriots started here.
yeah.
Ah, some people thought Celtics. I get that because it's inside an armory, and you're wondering how did they do football? Excuse me. What sport am I talking about? Inside an armory, but it was them, and it was in the year 1960. So I'm guessing they were running drills inside.
Well, they also practice, there's that field, Emerson
Oh,
Field,
yes.
right across. And here's a picture of that team, that first squad. I actually took a tour of the armory last year, and they still have the old locker room where the
Oh.
Patriots in the basement. It was kind
they
of
really?
creepy, but it was kind of cool to see. So they practiced in the field across the street. They did some drills in the building. There's actually, it's a huge building. There's all kinds of places to practice inside, and then their locker room was in
Yeah.
the basement. I was wondering, like, why? Someone asked me, why did they practice out here in Concord? And I kind of researched it a little bit. And basically, they were looking for someplace free, right? They had no money. They didn't have the budget the Patriots have now. And the assistant coach at the time knew a coach in Concord and said, like, we've got a field and a place you can have your locker room and it's free. And that's pretty much how it came. But I think it's kind of cool that they were called the Patriots, and here they were
too. That's actually
practicing
very
in
cool.
Concord.
And yeah, there is our big field right across the street, so it makes sense. Okay, who is credited with cultivating the Concord grape? If any of you have ever had Welch's grape jelly,
Oh, there's a
look at
picture.
that beautiful picture. You'll be well aware. So it's A, John Welch, B, Henry David Thoreau, or C, Ephraim Bull. So
This might be a little bit of a trick question.
kind of a trick question. Welch's is actually just moving their headquarters out of Concord too, because they've outgrown the space. But the fact that they've been here that long is pretty amazing. All right, how are we doing, kids? We think we're ready?
Oh, were you?
See, you know what we did, guys? I think we fooled you is what we did. It's Ephraim Bull. So Ephraim Bull lived here in Concord. There's still his cottage is on Lexington Road. And he essentially worked to develop a very hardy strain of grape by doing some grafting. And he did such a great job that once people bought the seeds from him, they never needed to come back and purchase more. They could just make their own, continue to grow their own. So on his gravestone in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, it says, he sowed while others reaped, because the poor man did not make a lot of money from his, I wouldn't say his innovation of making a very hearty grape that we still eat nowadays.
Excellent. But Welch was a good guess.
I
Okay.
know.
Our next question, what is the significance of the bell in front of the First Parish Church? And we'll show you a picture of that bell. There's the bell. The First Parish Church is a pretty large church that we have right in the center of town. It's been a parish since 1635. And this is a bell on the front. Oh, gee, dang.
See, this is what happens when you're too fast.
Hopefully you didn't see that.
Oh.
Okay, so A, rang to announce the Emancipation Proclamation. B, Thoreau rang the bell in 1844. Or C, it sounded the alarm on April 19th, 1775, that the regulars were coming.
I'm going to apologize for my indiscretion, you guys. I'm sorry. I don't know. This thing changes. Whatever. All right, we'll go to the answer just in case
I
you.
didn't think this.
Okay.
It was too fast.
All right.
It was Henry David Thoreau on August 1st, 1844. So on that day, Ralph Waldo Emerson agreed finally to give a speech denouncing slavery. He had been hounded by many people, including his wife and the Concord Female Anti-Slavery Society. All of these people hounding him. They wanted his voice, his prominent voice to speak out against slavery.
Because he lived here in Concord, his family lived here in Concord. They were a prominent family, and they'd been trying for 7 years to get him to speak.
And I don't think it was that he was not opposed to slavery. I tend to think it was more he was apolitical, or maybe he just like
he was a transcendentalist, and so he actually believed that each person was responsible for deciding those he should do proselytize about that.
Exactly. So he finally agrees to give this speech, and Henry David Thoreau is so excited that he runs to the First Parish Church and he asks the sexton to ring the bell of the church announcing the speech. And the story goes that the sexton refused for whatever reason. Probably it wasn't Sunday, you can't ring the bell. So Henry pushes him aside, runs to the top of the church and rings the bell. So when the church burned down in
1897 or something like
like
that.
that, the bell fell and cracked and it landed on the front of the lawn. So they left the bell there with a little plaque commemorating the moment that Henry ran up there and rang that bell. So kind of cool.
Yeah,
I wonder how they did on that question. I didn't see the
I don't
poll
know.
on
I
that.
didn't see it either.
That's okay.
Janine will tell us later.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this was the home of what Concord family? Look at that cute little house. It is not in its original location, I will tell you that. So, was it A, the Robbins family, B, the Thoreau family, or C, the Hawthorne family? These were three families who did all live in Concord. All right, how are we doing on the answers? I think we're doing okay. All right, I'm gonna take you to the answer, kids. I hope you answered. It's the Robbins family. So let me tell you a little bit about the Robbins family. Caesar Robbins was a man who was enslaved here in Concord, who had actually helped to build the original North Bridge, was most likely at the bridge that morning, even though it was a question as to whether or not you brought your enslaved people. But he fought in the Revolutionary War, and for that, he earned his freedom. Once he had his freedom, his descendants were then also free. And it was his son, Peter Hutchinson. I'm always a little confused because the names are different. He and his sister lived in this little house. So I just want you to take a look at this house. It's 540 square feet. Peter Hutchinson and his family lived on the left side. Susan Garrison and her family lived on the right side. So for those of you who live in houses that are probably a little bigger than 540 square feet, I want you to think about sharing this with two families. And Susan Garrison had a number of children. They were educated here in Concord. The families were very well thought of. And her daughter, Ellen Garrison, actually, Susan Garrison was one of the founding members of the Concord Female Anti-Slavery Society. And her daughter, Ellen, went on to become an educator in her own right. She helped to integrate the Centennial Parade here in Concord when she was 11 years old, as she went out and marched with another little girl who was white and who agreed to march with her because little Ellen thought nobody would want to march with her. And later, as an educator, she decided to test out the brand new Civil Rights Act by sitting in the white section of the Baltimore train station. And when she was thrown out, she sued under that act. So she was the Rosa Parks before there was Rosa Parks. So that is that house, that Robbins house. If you come here to Concord, it is free to go through and you will learn a lot about our African-American history here in Concord.
Excellent. Okay, next question. What was the name of this structure that stood just off of Monument Square until 1881?
So
There's a
take a
picture
look
of
at
it.
this. It's a good
Yeah,
picture.
but this is the name. Okay, A, the Colonial Inn, B, the Hartwell Tavern, or C, Middlesex Hotel.
Again, the building's not there anymore, so might be a little tough.
It's a pretty big building.
It was a really big
Yeah.
building.
It was the Middlesex Hotel. So that Middlesex Hotel, let's go back to the picture if we can, was built in 1770. When it was built, it was really the hub of activity in the town. I mean, look at the size of that hotel. They had military balls in there. At the time, Concord was the county seat. So they had the courthouse here. You had lawyers and litigators and defendants coming through. It was also a stagecoach stop. So that, there were a lot of travelers coming through. So it was a very busy, bustling place.
It was also the place where George Washington Dugan lived.
Oh yeah,
If you
remember George
I told you
Washington
that
Dugan?
earlier.
Yeah, he was like the stage he took
He
care
was,
of horses
he
then, yeah,
was.
of
The ostler, I think it was
George
called.
Washington Dugan, the Civil War veteran. Okay, anyway, so 1844, some things change in Concord. The railroad comes to town, the courthouse moves out of town, so the business in the Middlesex Hotel drops off tremendously. They have 2 fires, and then eventually it just closes down, and it's torn down, and the land now is a little park there. But
It's
cool
part
history.
of,
Look
it's
at
part
the
of Monument
building.
Square. And the people I think who bought that land, took down the hotel because it had fallen into disrepair, and took all of that land to donate to make it a site for where we would honor our war dead. All right, this next slide is the Bigelow House. What famous fugitive slave was housed here in 1851? I'm gonna let you answer.
I'll do this one because you can do the next ones.
All right.
So we have A, Shadrach Minkins, B, William Craft, or C, Anthony Burns.
I think this is a hard one.
And I think I'll tell you, all of these men were fugitive slaves. So
Okay,
you,
that makes it even harder.
it does.
All right. Janine, how are we looking? Are we looking like we got enough people who answered this?
Yeah,
Did
we
we
look
have
like
time?
we have enough. It looks like it's A.
Oh, wow.
I love it.
Excellent. You guys are right.
Yeah,
So
they're very smart.
I'm so impressed because
Me
this is
too.
kind of an obscure fact. I think he only spent 1 night here. So Shadrach Mankins was a fugitive slave who had escaped from Virginia in 1850. He was working in Boston on Beacon Hill at a coffee shop. And then the Fugitive Slave Act was passed in 1851, and he was captured. And they brought him into the courthouse, and it's fun to read the accounts of it. It was like a huge melee in the courthouse. A bunch of protesters stormed the protest. I mean, stormed the courthouse, and in the melee, he was whisked out of there, and he escaped. And they brought him, and he spent the night in a attic in Beacon Hill, and then I think 1 night in like Cambridge, and then he came out here to the Bigelow House that you just saw. So there were a number of homes here in Concord that were on the Underground Railroad, and that was one of the homes, the Bigelow House. He spent the night there, and then the next morning he was brought up to Fitchburg, where he took a train to Canada, and he ended up settling in Montreal and raising a family up in Montreal. But it's kind of, one of the tours that we have here is the African American tour, and we talk about formerly enslaved people. We talk about some of the homes on the Underground Railroad. It was a very vibrant community here in Concord.
All right. Ooh,
Oh, this
say-
is, I saw this last night. This is kind of cool. This was what do you call this?
Yeah.
A flyer that was put up in 1850. It can't see the date on there, but it's in 1851, cautioning the people in Boston who were fugitive slaves that watch out, they're coming to catch you. They
Wow.
passed this thing in 1851.
I know it has another name, but I'm too old to remember it.
Well, you mean other than flyer? Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I
other
can't
than
think of it.
flyer, it
Yeah.
was like yeah, exactly. Okay. What famous sculptor created the Minuteman statue at North Bridge and the Melvin Memorial at Sleepy Hollow Cemetery? So on your left there is the Minuteman statue. It was created for the centennial. And on the right is the Melvin Memorial to honor 3 brothers, the Melvin brothers, who died in the Civil War. So was it A, Hemet Billings, B, Daniel Chester French, or C, Edward Everett? I'm going to take you back. Well, no, I'm going to let you keep looking at these names.
I'll let them go a few more minutes before I
Okay.
let you guys know what they answered.
Oh,
The
Mary.
majority of the answers.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah, you tell us. You ready?
The majority is B, Daniel Chester French.
All right, smarty pants, all of y'all.
They are.
So let me tell you about Daniel Chester French. Daniel Chester French was a young man who had moved from New Hampshire with his family to Concord when he was 17. And his father approached May Alcott. May Alcott was the youngest Alcott sister, and she was an artist. And he said, listen, my son, the failure, has failed out of MIT, but he seems to like to sculpt. Could you see if he has any talent? So she gave him some tools and his first clay. And she said, yes, he does indeed have talent. And she gave him his first lessons. So a few years later, we come to the centennial of the first battle at the North Bridge, and the town wants to commission a statue. And he's about 21 at this time. And May Alcott was on the committee that had to choose the sculptor. And she was one of the people who convinced the town to go with Daniel Chester French. So the Minuteman sculpture on your left is his first major commission. It is made from the melted down bronze of Civil War cannons. It is meant to represent the Minuteman soldier. He later did the one on the right, which is made of pink Tennessee marble to honor those three brothers who had died in the Civil War. A fourth brother had said if he survived and if he became wealthy, one day he would commission this, and he did indeed. It is a really spectacular monument, and French himself loved it so much that he insisted on being buried on the ridge above it. So his grave marker, which is much more modest, is up on that ridge above. He also, as you see, did the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., and that was in fact his last major commission. So I like to say he did pretty well, even though he failed.
Rare. Okay, I think this is our last question. This is the Old Manse, which was built in 1770. We'll show you a picture in a second. What two famous authors lived here at different times in the mid-1800s? There's the Old Manse. Okay, our choices: A, Ralph Waldo Emerson and Nathaniel Hawthorne; B, Louisa May Alcott and Nathaniel Hawthorne; or C, Ralph Waldo Emerson and Margaret Fuller.
So two different authors.
Two different authors. They lived in the house at two different times, not together.
Yeah, let's make that clear. Louisa
Yeah.
May was not having an affair with Nathaniel Hawthorne. Now, Ralph Waldo
Give it
Emerson
a
may
few
have
more
been having-
minutes, and
Yeah,
then
he may
I'll
have
let
been
you
having an
guys
affair with
know.
Margaret Fuller.
We're
but
not sure about that one.
We don't know. No, we don't think so. Let's not start a rumor.
Emerson and Hawthorne? I don't know.
I don't know.
It appears that A is the most voted for.
This group, unbelievable,
smart.
unbelievable. Emerson and Hawthorne. So I mentioned earlier a little bit about the literary revolution that happened here in the mid-1800s. And I oftentimes want to think, like, why? Why did all these authors come here? Like, what was it about Concord? And it was basically Ralph Waldo Emerson. So the Old Manse was built by Waldo Emerson's grandfather, Reverend William Emerson, in 1770. So as a young boy, Ralph Waldo Emerson would come out quite often to spend time with his grandmother and step-grandfather. And then he came out in 1835 after the death of his young wife, spent some time traveling, came out to the Old Manse, 1835, and he lived here with his grandmother and his step-grandfather. And it was here in the Old Manse that he wrote one of his most famous essays, Nature. So that essay really propelled him to stardom. It was like the foundation, the start of transcendentalism. People were really drawn to him. He was a very sought after speaker, speaking all over the place. And it was he who brought Bronson Alcott to come to town. Alcott moved here in 1840 when Louisa May was just 9 years old. And he specifically came into town to work with Ralph Waldo Emerson. Now, we already had Henry David Thoreau, who lived here. We mentioned that he was a native of Concord, so he was already here. He was, I think, about 15 years Emerson's junior,
I think
something
so.
like that.
And Emerson really took him under
Yeah,
his wing as
he
a
took him under his wing. He's the one who encouraged him to write and keep a daily journal. And then in 1842, we had Nathaniel Hawthorne move into Concord, and he moved into the Old Manse. By this time, Emerson's had moved out. Emerson had his own house called the Bush down not far from where the Alcotts were living. So 1842, on his wedding day, Nathaniel Hawthorne moves out here with his wife, Sophia. And to just give you an idea of the kind of collaboration that was going on, as a wedding gift, Thoreau and another man built a garden that is still in front of the Old Manse for Hawthorne and his wife. And then Hawthorne moves away. He comes back to Concord. He moves into the Wayside, just as the Alcotts are moving out of the house called the Wayside into Orchard House. And that is right in the same, like within what,
Yeah.
eighth of a mile
Yeah.
of Emerson's house. So there was this whole collaborative community of authors living here, not to mention the people coming in. Margaret Fuller, Channing Ellerly, and I'm you know, there were musicians, there were painters. It was just that you can picture this really vibrant community in the 1800s.
They had a real literary circle. They had the Dial magazine, which they all wrote for. So there was a real draw to bringing them out here. I do want to mention one thing, though, just because this is a pet peeve of mine. And that's that Ralph Waldo Emerson came out here first to live at the age of 8 after his father died. And he was raised primarily at that point by his aunt, Mary Moody Emerson, and her friend, Sarah Alden Bradford Ripley. And Mary Moody actually wrote a lot about the connection of nature to spirituality. So he probably was influenced in his transcendentalism by his aunt and other women in his life. So I just like to mention that because transcendentalism didn't really blossom until he wrote about it, but there were other women writing about that earlier.
Yeah, Margaret Fuller wrote a lot about
Yeah, she did.
transcendentalism as well.
So he gets the credit, though.
A fun place to visit if you should come to Concord is the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, because Emerson and Thoreau had a say in the design of the cemetery in the mid 1800s when that was built. And they decided they all wanted to be buried together on a ridge. So up on Author's Ridge, we have the Hawthorns, the Moody's, the Emersons, and the Alcotts all buried up there together.
Okay.
So I don't think we need a tiebreaker.
Do we need a tiebreaker?
No, I think we can just go to thank you.
Okay.
And we are good. So
All right.
I hope you guys enjoyed the trivia and learned a little bit of something from us. I don't know, Janine, if we have any time for questions,
Were there people who had questions?
If there are people that have questions, we do have time for them to ask the
Okay.
questions if you guys are all set for it.
Absolutely.
So, audience, please ask your questions.
you shut your door.
Who wants to go first? You can unmute yourselves and ask a question. And we'll
Please.
answer. Let me see.
I don't see anything here.
I don't either.
Well, they did know quite a bit.
I was
They
very
absolutely
impressed.
did.
So we hope, like, now that you've seen this and you've seen some pictures of town, that it gets you inspired to come and visit. We'd love to have you come out. Like I said, we have a ton of different tours. Stephanie just alluded to Mary Moody Emerson. We have a Women of Concord tour. I mentioned we have the African American tour. So we,
An Indigenous people's
Indigenous
tour,
people,
Patriots of Color tour. So
cemeteries. We hit it all. So
whatever your particular niche is or what your interest is, we can make that work.
we'd like to dive a little bit deeper into the things that we just discussed with you
Yeah,
guys.
we
So-
even have a tour that goes on the Emerson Thoreau Amble. So it's the path that goes from Emerson's house all the way up to Walden Pond where his cabin was. And you can hear a little bit about the Transcendentalists and Brister Freeman and some other things. So that's a really nice one if you like to do a little hiking.
Well, Mary and Stephanie, I would love to thank you so much for your patience and kindness and your support of me during this webinar. I would like to thank our members and our guests for showing up and being patient with us. You guys are unbelievably bright. A lot of the information that I learned was for the first time today. So I hope that you all enjoyed it. We will be sending you out a survey shortly, and you will receive a recording of this webinar. Thank you and have a good
Thanks
day.
for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.